a Word document, I had to send a message to their facilitator, say, please, please, please. Morning, Julia. How's it going? What, I'm fine, what, does that say error? Are those bubble letters that say error?
Oh, yeah.
But they're not even good bubble letters, that's the problem. Turn around and show me yours. They're not. I mean, when we did, bubble letters actually came out a long time ago. So I learned to do bubble letters like this. So I can tell it's an A. I can read that as air. I'm having trouble with your pink one. It looks like bubble gum somebody chewed on and kind of tried to shape into it. I don't like to write on the board up here because these dry erase markers are dried up. That's why I try to do it on the document camera. Or try to avoid it whatsoever. Okay. Let's go back to draw. So do you guys have the ones that look like, did we get through these? The ones that said, that had grammar worksheets, that said comma splice on one and it said fuse run on the other? Did we get through those, you guys?
I think so.
I think I raced through the last ones and gave you the answers, didn't I, on both of them? Okay, so we have a little more time. I had to finish up. I didn't finish any of my classes exactly the same. It's kind of scary. It's kind of sad.
I think the only page we didn't do is this one.
And that's just an extra sheet about it. It's all instructions. So have those sheets, have the Awubis worksheet with you when you take the quiz. That's my best advice. It's dark. Nobody's in the room. They're sitting I see bodies moving. Oh, today's good. Well, eventually, hopefully they'll turn on the lights. Turn out the lights, the party's over. It's a really old song. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about those. Oh, crud. I've discovered I can write on PDFs now that I've saved. But it will keep what I've written on them in there. And so I've got to erase it. I didn't know I could do this. Makes life exciting. Woo! Technology is so cool sometimes, and then so not cool. Okay. All right. We're going to do some grammar work today, except we're waiting for New Deal to get in there. So I'm sorry, I'm slow grading. I don't have your paragraphs done. I will get them done this weekend. I have 4 left from the earlier class. You guys are only 22, which is not a big class, really, with you and the kids at the schools. So I will get them done this weekend. Hopefully there's nothing I have to scan to email to you, because then you'll be late getting it, because I can't scan until I get up here. I'm not going to use my phone to scan documents. It's a mess. It's hard. You can get tiny, or you can take pictures and scan and email them to yourself with your notepad thing. But I don't know. Moderna's case for a COVID-19 booster shot. Its vaccine protection wanes by 36% after 12 months. We're at 7. We got 5 more months before it wanes completely. All right, you got 2 worksheets. New Deal's coming in slowly. Yeah. You got 2 worksheets. We're going to look at the one that says Fuse Run On. It says academic achievement at the bottom. Okay. I'm just making notes about who's not here. Isaiah is one of the hardest names to spell. You know it? Because it's an A-I-A in the middle. Okay. I'm just going to go Kutsia 19, so I remember that it's COVID-19, so I can't really hurt it. Okay, so let's look at the one that says, it's got run-on, few sentences, and comma splices. You have your quiz tomorrow. It'll open up at 8 a.m. It closes at midnight. This is an easy test. You have the options of true or false. True means that there's no grammar error in the sentence. False means that there is either a comma splice or fused run-on in it. Those are the only errors that will be in them. So if you read it and you think, oh, that's the wrong pronoun, you're wrong. That's not the error. The error is either going to be a comma splice or a fused run-on if it's an error. Otherwise, true if it's correct, it's grammatically correct. False if it's not correct. Pretty easy. 50-50 chance of getting it right. They're not all true. They're not all false. Don't try to don't think I'm playing tricks with your mind. Okay? Because you know how it is, like, oh, always answer C on multiple choice, right? You know, there's that myth out there about that. I'm just snarky enough to make them all big, but that's not an option this time. So I recommend that when you take the quiz, have the AWUBIS handout with you. It's the one, I'll put it over here where you can see it better. It says AWUBIS on the top of it, because AWUBIS are words that are subordinated conjunctions. And a lot of times they can begin a sentence, and you have to have a comma at the end of the subordinating conjunction. If they're in the middle of the sentence, you don't put a comma in front of them. Okay? So watch out for that. And you're going to see some sample sentences today that have them in it. But AWUBIS is the acronym for, this is a list of the subordinating conjunctions. And you're going to see, you've got all those W words, when, whenever, where, wherever, while, or whether, but not which. Which is not a subordinating conjunction. It's a relative pronoun, as is when, but you know. So use that as a handy. And then it gives you a couple of examples. So make sure you have the AWUBIS one, and then these worksheets with the correct answers. It's okay, sorry, didn't mean to go back to that. It is okay to use your documents when you take the test. Don't attempt to take it Saturday at 8 a.m. You won't find it. It will not be in week 3 at the bottom. All right? So you always look for stuff in the week that it's due. That's where you'll find to put it. So that's tomorrow between 8 and midnight to accommodate the SBC students. Then you have a draft of your narrative due by midnight Sunday. It's just easier to make everybody Sunday, because then I don't have to try to adjust dates. My dates will stay the same for everyone. We will do peer revision of 2 narratives. You need 2 copies of your narrative, because we're going to do something called, you're going to read aloud to each other. Because sometimes grammar, if we hear grammar errors, like isn't going to go to school today. See how it's hard for me to even say it, because my brain says that's incorrect. You can't say that. I am not going to go to school today is how you should say it. So grammar is an oral thing. When you were growing up, did your parents correct you? I know darn well Miss Hockenberry at Newdale, her mama corrected her. So I'm guessing that, you know, your parents probably corrected you when you were young. If your parents are a second language speaker, if Spanish is their first language and that's what they're more native in, they probably didn't correct you as much as people whose English is the first language. So that's a disadvantage for somebody who has, you know, second language speaking parents. So, but grammar is oral. But they probably corrected your Spanish when you said it wrong. So did your parents grow up with you speaking Spanish, Julia? No? They didn't? So you're at advantage then. Alex, how about you?
My grandma.
Your grandma? So would she correct you if you responded to her in Spanish? That's how we learn grammar, is through hearing it. Okay, so now let's talk about this first one about run-ons, fused sentences and comma splices. So it gives you, the first page gives you the definitions. It talks about, let me make this just a little bit smaller, since you have a copy in front of you. It gives you the definition of a fused sentence and an example. It gives you an example of a comma splice. And then it tells you the strategy is, ask yourself how many independent clauses are in the sentence. And so if it consists of 2 or more independent clauses, like the examples above, you need to fix it. And it gives you 4 solutions for fixing them. It says separate the 2 independent clauses into 2 sentences. That's a period and a capital letter. I'm not having you do that. up until a couple of years ago, up until last year, I had this test, you had to fix sentences. But it takes a lot of time to grade. I have 89? This is the smallest group of ITD students I've had, ever. And it takes a lot of time to grade, though, 10 sentences that have been rewritten. And there's so many ways to fix it. And then you get kids who are fixing the wrong things in the sentence. So that I finally decided on, I guess it was Tuesday, I went and fixed this quiz so that it was easier. So, you can connect the two independent clauses with a semicolon. You can connect the two independent clauses with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Make sure you have that list of fanboys, or highlight it in this one if you haven't written it out. I actually have it, did I do this, show you guys this one, where I wrote it out and put this? Fanboys, it's the acronym for the coordinating conjunctions. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. Commas, they're the only conjunctions that have commas, and it goes before them. You don't put it after them, you put it before the conjunction. And what I'm going to tell you right now is, this is English land. It's my world, and you follow English rules, okay? They can't see me. I was sitting here going like this. This is my world. You have to follow the English rules. You can't go by what happens in journalism. You can't go by what happens out there in popular fiction or whatever, or magazines. You have to follow the English rules. And so I will tell you everything that's wrong. If any of you have got back your paragraph, well, you haven't. I haven't done your paragraph. I write a lot. And the purpose is to let you know what's wrong. So it's
Not our paragraphs that are due Sunday.
no, that's a narrative, and that's an essay. The paragraphs are the personal paragraphs that you wrote.
Oh.
Okay? No, you have a narrative essay with an introduction, at least a body paragraph, and a conclusion. All right? Make sure it's formatted correctly. Please don't write anything in the submission area or the comments area. Write it in write it in some kind of word processing document. You have to turn it in as a Word, PDF, or RTF for me to be able to open it. So if you're on a Mac or a Chromebook, make sure you're making those changes. Okay? I mean, I know they're using PCs at New Deal, so I got there. Hey, Post, are you guys on PCs or are you on Macs or Chromebooks? I'm listening. Nobody's answering. Okay. Just realize if you're on a Chromebook or you are on a Mac, you have to change the formatting and turn it into the correct kind of document, because I can't open it. Did you turn yours in as a? I had somebody turn theirs in as a Mac. Or
Post is on
Pages or something.
Chromebooks.
I'm not sure what it was. It's gets interesting sometimes, because there's a lot of little programs out there, and when you open them up, they won't open up. It'll go, what do you want to open it up with? Well, if it asks that question, I know I can't open it. All right, so let's go back over here and get this done, because we're going to spend a little time and grab our bite. The last one says make one of the clauses dependent on the other one. That's where the awubis comes in. And part of why you are including the awubis on this, even though I'm not going to test you over awubises, is that writing becomes more interesting when we vary our sentence structures. I don't know if it was middle school or elementary, you were taught about simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and then compound complex. A simple sentence just has one subject, has one independent clause. Compound has two independent clauses. Complex has one dependent clause, which would have probably one of those awubis words, one of those subordinated conjunctions, and then an independent clause, and then the compound complex has a couple of. Right. So the more complex your sentences are, the more interesting they can become, but you don't want to do them all compound complex. You want a variety. I had somebody in one of the classes who had their first 5 sentences range between 6 and 8 words. 5 out of 8 to 10 sentences, all 6 to 8 words gets boring. Variety in sentence length is important. But you don't need to be able to say if something is simple, compound, or complex, even though if we talk about it. So they give you some examples of what to do. So now we're going to go over and we're going to talk about the exercise. The exercise says each sentence below consists of 2 or more independent clauses. Place brackets around each independent clause and determine whether the sentence is a comma splice or a fused run-on. So what I want you to do is put each sentence below, put brackets around independent clauses, okay? Then you have to determine if there's the error in it, and these will all have errors. Whether you have a comma splice, which means there has to be a comma in it, or you have nothing, makes it a fused run-on, okay? And you don't need to correct the sentences, because I'm not asking you to correct the sentences on the test. So I'm giving you an easier test. So you're gonna put brackets, and then you're either gonna decide, do you have a comma splice or a fused run-on? And I'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes to do. That should be plenty of time to do, 8 or 9, 10 sentences? Okay. 10. Oh my gosh, iPhone 13 is coming out? iPhone 13 Pro. I think I'll pass on that. Give you about another 30 seconds and then we'll go over it. Let's do this together, or I'll do most of it. How about that? Fair enough? All right, so sentence one, Ellen had her hands, I'll try this again. Ellen had her hands, that's alliteration, by the way, full taking care of Stephen. He was at the age where he was full of mischief. So, Ellen begins the first independent clause. Julius, where do you think it ends?
Taking care of Stephen.
Yeah, it occurs after Stephen, okay? The next one then is going to begin at he was, and it goes all the way where? To the end of the sentence. So this is a comma splice. All right? Number two, I can read this one and make it so ununderstandable. I'm going to race right through it. The sky turned gray, bolts of lightning flashed in the east, thunder rolled across the mountains. That didn't make any sense, did it? Okay, so you have to stop and break it down. The sky turned gray. That's your first one. Bolts of lightning flashed in the east. Thunder rolled across the mountains. There's three independent clauses in there. This is a fused run-on. And I'm going to say, obviously, on the previous one, on the comma splice, you can just put a semicolon there. Here, you've got to figure out what to do to make it better. The sky turned gray, I might say, as bolts of lightning flashed in the east, while thunder rolled across the mountains. And what I did, by adding two words, I made that into a complete sentence with no errors, because I used two WUBIS words to make them dependent clauses. So you could go, as, put as above it, as bolts of lightning flashed in the thunder in the east, while thunder rolled across the mountains. And the words I used gave you signals about what was and when it was happening, didn't I? That's what those words do, is they add meaning to the sentence. So you don't just pick a random WUBIS word and put it in there, or a random coordinating conjunction. When you do that, it adds meaning. Number three, Americans are more conscious of the need for fitness. They have become avid, I believe that word's there, active sports enthusiasts. They are more interested in good nutrition. They are aware of the need to reduce stress. Yeah. So, Americans are more conscious of the need for fitness. Everybody agree that's the first independent clause? And I see a comma, so I can already tell. And there's not a coordinating conjunction, so this is going to be a CS. I already know that. They have become sports enthusiasts. They are more interested in good nutrition. And they are aware of the need to reduce stress. So, and this is, I see this a lot when students write, because they think I'm writing it's a list. I'm giving you a list. No, you're not. You're giving me 4 independent clauses joined by comma splices. You could go, Americans are more in need of the conscious, so, I might put so up here, but after the comma, so they have become sports enthusiasts. I would leave that comma in, and I would go, they have become enthusiasts or more interested in good nutrition. I would create a compound verb list. And are aware of the need to reduce stress. That's how I would do it. I would make it one long sentence that has, well, it's two, I would make it a complex sentence, 2 independent clauses. No dependent. Just because it varies it. I would rather read a list than have to read, they have, they are, at the beginning of several sentences. One of the things that I kind of practiced when I was writing, particularly in graduate school for my master's in English, I would not repeat pronouns in consecutive sentences. I wouldn't go, they are, and then the next sentence would go, they are. I would use the pronoun in the sentence, and the next sentence I would use the noun again, or some other noun. I tried not to repeat things because it gets boring. And when you're writing in English, you not only have to write correct, you have to not only have to answer whatever they're doing or do the assignment, you have to write well. You can't have errors in it. You have to make it interesting when you write, so it makes it tougher. Number 4, television can be entertaining. It can also be boring. So television and entertaining is the first one. It and boring is the second. So you might want to say, instead of putting that comma, it is a comma splice, as was the one above it. But here you might want to go semicolon, however, comma. I might use the conjunctive adverb. And it signals to the reader that here's one thing, here's the opposite. So, and I wouldn't say television can be entertaining. I wouldn't use a semicolon on its own because it says that television can be entertaining. It can also be boring. That means they're of equal value, and that's not necessarily true. I don't necessarily think they're equal. I think many times television is entertaining. Some of the stuff is boring, not all of it. Children learn from their parents' examples. Parents' behavior is an important part of their children's experience. I like this sentence because it does plural possessive correct. Children learn from their parents' examples. That's your first independent clause. Children is a plural word, right? Child is singular, children's plural. So children, so it has to be, see how this is actually subject-verb agreement. These have to agree. And children are going to, if you have a group of children, they're going to have more than one parent, correct? So you have to have plural parents. And it's their example, so this is a plural possessive. The S apostrophe makes it a plural possessive. And that's done correctly. You need something here because the next one is parents' behavior is an important part of their children's experience. And it reinforces it. There's your plural possessive because it's their behavior, they own it. And are y'all aware that possessives are adjectives? Because it tells you whose behavior? Parents' behavior. It's an important part of their, see, because we have more than one parent, and it's children possessive this time, because it tells you whose experience. So this is a comma splice, and you could actually just put a semicolon because the way this sentence is set up, it's very parallel in structure, the both sentences are. And there's a lot of writing on that one. Oh, I like this sentence. The life of a farmer is a lonely one. His opportunities to socialize are limited because of the constant attention he must give to the things he cultivates. Isn't there a dating website called Farmers Only? Yeah, because it's hard to find, and they give you the reason in the sentence. But in my mind, if it says, and it does actually say farmers only, is that farmers wanting to date other farmers? That's what that means, farmers only. It means that if I were a single woman, unless I was a farmer, I couldn't go in there.
Miss Thompson?
Yes.
How did you get comma slice on number 5?
I'm sorry, what?
How did you get comma splice on number 5?
A comma splice on number 5? Was that a comma in there? I marked over it, so that might be the issue. Is there a comma in there? Hold on.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so that one's a fused run-on. If there's no punctuation, this exercise, if there's no punctuation, it has to be a fused run-on. Does that make sense? Was that 5? Yeah. So no, it's an FRO. It's not always easy to write with these pencils when you're taking the mouse and moving it around. I guess I could, no. Oh, that's why I should have done, instead of doing it with the mouse, I should have done it with the pencil. Okay, so you have the life of a farmer is a lonely one. That's the independent clause. His opportunities to socialize are limited because of the constant attention he must give to the things he cultivates. Independent clause, independent clause. Woohoo. It's not on, dadgummit. Thanks for telling me. Okay, you have an independent clause here, independent clause here. This is a dependent clause. Dependent clauses always have to be part of have to have an independent clause close. So you need, this is a fused run-on also. You need something between those two. And you don't put a comma before because. It's not a coordinating conjunction, it's a subordinating. His opportunities to to socialize are limited because cause, so here's the cause and there's the effect. There's the cause, there's the effect. Limited opportunity to socialize. That's probably why we have so many little romance books out there, like all the Harlequins and all the various varieties of them. If you ever looked at books in Walmart or whatever, there's hundreds of those books out there. Because farmers don't have opportunity to socialize. Not that they're buying the books, but they write about farmers finding love, okay? Oil imports are very expensive. We must learn to be economical in our use of energy. First one goes all the way to expensive. Comma splice, CS. We must learn to be economical in our use of energy. I mean, it's an okay sentence, but I am left with the question, who's we? And when you have a pronoun, you have to have an antecedent. So be careful when you write that all of a sudden you don't, this is what I've seen in some of the paragraphs. They'll begin off with I and they'll go, somebody's writing about their vacation. I got to travel to so-and-so. We did this. Who's we? You haven't told me who we is. I know I is the writer of the paper, but who is we? So be careful about that. So advanced methods of communication have made the world smaller. People are brought closer together. We find ourselves with common interests. So I see 3 independent clauses, and they are joined by commas, so this one's a comma splice. You cannot assume on that test tomorrow that just if there's a comma in there, it's a comma splice. Okay? You've got to see what's on there. If you see a comma in the sentence, is there a coordinating conjunction after it? That's the first thing you should ask yourself. Is there a coordinating conjunction? What's on the front side of it? If it's a dependent clause with an awubis word, then that comma is correct. And if it's an independent clause after it, it's correct. But if there's a independent clause, you have to look at it and figure out what's going on. Some scientists call the computer essentially stupid. Others fear its capacity to think. This is like a precursor to Terminator, right? 2 independent clauses. The punctuation in this one, that's an FRO, you need to put whatever punctuation inside those quotation marks of stupid. About 85–90% of the time, punctuation goes inside quotation marks, unless you're quoting someone's words, okay? Which is not the same thing as dialogue. Dialogue is different. Here, they're just trying to emphasize the words. I would prefer that you not use a lot of quotation marks because you want to make a word special. Like, it's like Death Star. Austin Powers and Death Star. How we always did the air quotes. That's kind of what you are doing for me. You want to emphasize the word. Don't do that. Don't. And don't use exclamation points. Unless it's something truly exciting, okay? Just because you love to play football doesn't mean you need to put an exclamation point at the end of it, okay? That's what happens. And so the last one, college freshmen need help in making the transition from high school. The sheer size of most colleges can be a problem to new students. Your first one's here, college freshmen to high school. The second one is that the sheer size can be a problem. And it's going to be a comma splice. Okay? So we're fixing that. All right, so that is that one. I like that one because it's closest to really what you're going to be doing. Except you don't have to identify the error. You don't have to tell me one or the other, okay? I'm just erasing this page real quick. I don't need all those blue marks on it forever. My luck, I would open it up next year and we no longer have that ability to edit a PDF, or to write on a PDF. Things disappear when you work sometimes. So, I'm just erasing very quickly. So we're going to look at the other one, which is about, I think it says, doesn't it say comma splices on it? That's a Word document. Almost done. I'm having to take my little eraser and go up and down. I made a lot of marks this time. I'm finally figuring out if I just put my cursor on the mark, it'll erase it. I don't have to run it like an eraser. That's what I've been doing. So long as you're, okay, I know what's happening. So long as you're making one fluid movement, if you stop the pen and do it, can I use the pen? Okay, sorry. I'll get there. I'm leaving that document. All right, let's go into the Word. This is the one that you can't see, but mine actually has it in blue. So once again, and you'll notice on every single document you've gotten explanations what a comma splice is and what a fused run-on sentence is to help you out. And so in this one, they use the terms IC to stand for independent clause. So we hiked in the Blue Ridge Mountains for 3 weeks. We were very tired, so you've got, there's one IC, the other IC, and then, oh, let me see, I'll see if I can draw. It's not, no, see, I've done something in my documents that won't allow me to draw anymore. It makes me mad, sorry. So, here's your first independent clause. There's your second one, so you just have to fix it. You could say, we hiked in Blue Ridge Mountains for 3 weeks, semicolon. As a result, comma, we were very tired. That's how you could fix that. And they give you 3 ways to correct comma splices. And they show you in that same sentence. It says, don't simply delete the comma, because then you create a fused run-on. Be careful. For each sentence below, write CS if it is a comma splice, or C if the sentence is correct. You've only got 9 sentences, 10 sentences. Do those very quickly. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, crud. Not what I meant to do. No. So this one's pretty quick, isn't it? So I'm judging by you guys and what you're doing. If your heads are down, you're still working, right? My phone on silent, that would be good. All right, let's do this, okay? Number one, my apartment is too small. I have no room for my treadmill and exercise bike, so here's, it's not gonna let me write. My apartment is too small is a dependent clause. I have no room for my treadmill and exercise bike, another independent clause, so this one's a CS, comma splice. I'm exhausted, however, I will go to school anyway. I'm exhausted, that's a complete sentence. I am exhausted. I will go to school anyway is another complete sentence. I thought that I read this morning, and I look out, one of my SEC students was like this. And so, you know, I get that. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's really hard to be awake for. All right, this is a comma splice. To correct this one, all you have to do is make the comma in front of however a semicolon. If however is in the middle of a sentence and it interrupts two independent clauses, a semicolon goes on the left-hand side, a comma on the right side. You have to have both marks when it does that. If you're just going, I like pigs, however, only if they stink. See, that's not, only if they stink is not a complete, that's a dependent clause, so you don't do a semicolon on the other side. Only if they stink, I like them. Not a great sentence, sorry. Tom opened his freezer, then he noticed that 2 cans of beer had exploded. Why would you put your beer in the freezer? Do you like beer that cold? It's been a long time since I've even had beer in my house, since the last time my son brought it over. We just don't drink. My husband's diabetic, had stroke, doesn't happen. Then he noticed that 2 cans of beer. So you have 2 independent clauses, another comma splice here, so we're on our third one in a row. Then is sometimes listed as a conjunctive adverb, so it needs to be a semicolon. I might go semicolon, unexpectedly, I would change the then to, unexpectedly, he noticed that 2 cans of beer had exploded. In your freezer. I was told that alcohol won't freeze, but beer will. Thanks, I appreciate that, Cal, for letting me know. Somebody's got to keep me up with what's going on, okay? So 3 CS's to begin with. Although I understand the definition, comma splices still confuse me. Although I understand the definition, can that stand on its own? Can it stand on its own? Although I understand the definition, although you understand it, what aren't you telling me? Although isn't a WUBIS word. That's why you need the WUBIS page out. When it begins a sentence, you have to have a comma at the end of the dependent clause. Not after although. What I'll get is somebody will go, although, comma, I understand the definition, comma splices still confuse me. And they've made it worse. No commas after a WUBIS is only at the end of the dependent clause. This sentence is correct. Okay? Here, every dependent clause has to have an independent clause to make it a complete sentence attached to it. Because I understand the definition, comma splices don't confuse me. See how I've just changed the sentence? I have to change the words a little bit. So that's why you need this WUBIS page when you take this, in case I'm snarky enough to put a dependent clause at the beginning of the sentence, okay? Because then it'll be true. So if you need it, let me know. I still have a few left. Number 5, a comma splice occurs when 2 complete sentences are joined only by a comma. I need to remember that rule. You got it on enough pieces of paper from me, don't you think? Okay. So your first independent clause goes all the way to comma, whether it's the word or the mark of punctuation. The second one is, I need to remember that rule. This is a comma splice. Okay? the first dependent clause, a comma splice occurs. This is a dependent clause used as the adverbial phrase that it tells you when something occurs, okay? So, it might look like there's a lot of things happening in there, but there really is just two independent clauses. I like this sentence. It means it has or it has. It is always incorrect. First independent clause goes all the way to has. Second one occurs here. Its is always incorrect. Just like we have issues with plural possessives, we have issues with contractions and apostrophes. That's why I actually spend one thing working on apostrophes. Its is the contraction. It has or it is, it has or it was. All right? They only give you the two. That's a comma splice. See how it's inside those closing quotation marks? Its, ITS apostrophe, doesn't exist. It's not out there. It is not, it should never occur. And I've had at least 2 people do the contraction incorrectly. They will go ITS. So, and that's on the paragraph. So, you know, this is something to know. So again, this is a comma splice. So there's some interesting things happening when they give you the grammar rules. Number 7, I hiked for 5 hours yesterday. Consequently, I am too tired to go hiking again today. Here's your first independent clause. Your second one begins at I. Consequently needs to have a semicolon in front of it and probably a comma after it, though it's not necessarily a, adverbial conjunction. Hold on, let's do this. Oh, that's where I wanted to be. Is consequently a conjunctive adverb. Oh, look here. So if you're not sure what the conjunctive adverbs are, all I did was type in is consequently a conjunctive adverb. And look, some common conjunctive adverbs are all of those, and consequently is a conjunctive adverb. So you can look at and see that there's a list of about 20. All right? So that tells you what you need to do. If you're not sure, just Google it. When you take this quiz, Google it. Don't put the whole sentence in. It won't necessarily be that quick enough for you to do it, okay? For example, I like to read suspense novels, email my friends, and play cards with my daughter. Ignore, for example, that's a prepositional phrase that's modifying the entire sentence. It's adverbial in nature. So you don't have to worry about it. That comma means nothing. I like to read suspense novels. There's an independent clause. Email my friends. Is email my friends a clause? The definition of a clause is you have to have a subject and a verb. Do we know who's emailing my friends? Okay, so that's not a clause. Play cards with my daughter? Is that a clause? Is there a subject? Who's playing cards? Who's emailing their friends? Who's reading suspense novels? I is. What you have is you have a compound verb. You have I like to read, I like to email, I like to play cards. So this sentence is correct. It's only one long independent clause, though it's got 3 commas in it. My son Jeffrey plays drums in a band called Talent Scam, and he likes to surf at Playa Linda Beach. My son Jeffrey plays drums in a band called Talent Scam. There's your first independent clause. And he likes to surf at Playa Linda Beach. There's your second one. Is this a comma splice? Is it a comma splice? Why isn't it a comma splice? Because it has a coordinating conjunction after the comma. First thing on the test tomorrow, if you have a comma, is there a coordinating conjunction after it? That's the first thing you look for. If there is not one, then you go look and see at the beginning of wherever, from the comma, is there one of the awubis words? If there's an awubis word, it should say, because whenever I eat pizza, comma, my face breaks out from the tomato sauce. See how whenever I eat pizza, you find out what happens. So you've got to go in and look at what it means. And then the last one, so these 8 and 9 have been correct. So there have been 3 correct so far out of 9. Some people value money and material possessions. Others value love and family. Here's your independent clause. We'll put that one green. And others value love and family. Okay? So we have 2 independent clauses joined by the comma, no conjunction, no subordinating conjunction. So this is a comma splice also. So these should help you on the test tomorrow. Woo, we're almost done. If you need a refresher, I'm going to show you Grammar Bites again. I've discovered if I will not have it blown up super big, it'll work. So here's Grammar Bites. You go in and make it smaller. Okay, I'm getting there. You type in Grammar Bites, Grammar, space BYTES. And it is strictly about doing grammar exercises. So, and it's the bites because of sharks. So just scroll down until you get to where it says exercises. Click on that. And the very first one is comma splices and fused run-on sentences. So before you take a quiz, just run through a few of these. When you go in, the nice thing about Grammar Bites, it gives you a definition of what a comma splice is, and it gives you what a fused run-on sentence is, okay? Then it'll say start here. It gives you examples. So on this particular exercise, you select the left door if it's a comma splice, the right door if it's a fused run-on sentence. So I'm not even looking at the sentence. I'm just going to select comma splice. Hold on a second. I got it wrong. Hurry up. Let's go. Come on, Grammar Bites. The nice thing about it is it gives you a couple of cues that you got it. It gives you a negative sounding thing. So there's the cow. The cow is your consolation. But when you get it wrong, it says get an explanation, and it tells you what it should have been, and it explains what the parts of the sentence are. That's helpful, okay? And it shows that it should have been that Julie is a real Julie. That would be Miss Hockenberry's mom when her stomach hurts, but she's not Hockenberry. So it gives you that explanation. I'm going to go to the next item. And on this one, it's about my cat Buster, loves to nap on warm appliances. When he sleeps on top of the microwave oven, his tail swipes the glass door like a windshield wiper. I'm going to select fused run-on this one. I got it right. Okay? It's giving me a cyber cash. It's not even Bitcoin, so it's no good. You don't get anything out of it. But even if you get it right, you can get the explanation. Because you're like, why did I get it right? So that's the nice thing about Grammar Bites on the exercises. It'll tell you why you got it wrong and why you got it right, okay? So good luck tomorrow. The quiz 8 to midnight. Be sure you look in week 3 for it. You won't find it anywhere else.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
Go to the week, and that's where it'll be. And then you have a draft of the narrative due by midnight Sunday. It needs to be an essay, correct heading, introduction, at least an introduction, body, and conclusion. The final essay is a minimum of 500 words, so make sure you're approaching that. It's due Sunday night. You'll need 2 copies on Tuesday for us to do read aloud for revision. You're going to read each other's essays to each other because grammar is oral, okay? So have a great weekend. Good luck on your quiz tomorrow. Remember, you can use the worksheets. Don't say, oh, I can do it without them. Don't do that. Use those worksheets. Make a good grade.
Your conference is now over. Goodbye.
Bye.